Hey, Shalom. This is the brother Abad. You're back here once again. Before I get started, like always, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Rachahakwadash. Double honors to my teachers, the elder apostles of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. Yeah, I want to go into how King David's hands were too bloody to build a temple unto Abba Yahweh, the Most High Yahweh. We read in the scriptures how the Lord designated David's seed, which was Solomon, King Solomon. He designated King Solomon to build the temple because King David's hands were too bloody. So, matter of fact, let me get that account. I believe it's in First Chronicles, the 28th chapter. And then I'm going to go into how David's hands were so bloody. All right. We're not like these Christian churches, these Christian pastors that just bring up these biblical patriarchs, but don't go into the characteristics and the actions that these patriarchs did. But this is First Chronicles, the 28th chapter. Let's start at verse 1. It's verse 2. It says, Then David the king stood up upon his feet and said, Hear me, my brethren and my people. As for me, I had in mine heart to build an house of rest for the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, and for the footstool of our power, and had made ready for the building. But Yahweh said unto me, Thou shalt not build an house for my name, because thou hast been a man of war, and hast shed blood. All right, so, the Lord said he shed blood. He'd been a man of war. But David wasn't your average man of war, all right? Even going to how David, with his mighty men, he said David was able to put tens of thousands to flight, all right? So was his men, all right? Able to put hundreds to flight. One man, okay? But when David was fleeing from Saul, all right, Saul was persecuting David before David got the throne. When Saul was still King Saul, David's mighty men were coming up with him. David already had a group of men with him. I think around that time he had like 600. But he had the men with him, and they were already warring early. So I'm going to give an example. Matter of fact, let's go to First Samuel, the book of First Samuel. Because when David was seeking refuge because he was fleeing from Saul, he dwelt amongst the Philistines, all right, which the Philistines are a Hamitic nation. They come from the lineage of Ham, all right, and this is one of the things that he did while he was dwelling amongst the Philistines, okay. This is First Samuel, the 27th chapter, all right. This is when David. Matter of fact, let me go. Let me read verse 2 first, and then I'm going to drop down. This is 1 Samuel chapter 27, verse 2. It says, And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maach, the king of Gath. And Gath is a land that the Philistines inhabited. So David had 600 men with him that were following him while he was fleeing from Saul. It wasn't just David by himself, all right? It said, verse 3, And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, and Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, now Nabal's wife. And this is all before David becomes King David. He already had multiple wives. So that shows you the type of guy David was. He loved women. But that's well within a man's right to have multiple wives. It's in our law. As long as you're able to provide shelter, clothing, and food for those women, and not diminish in those aspects, then yes, you can take on another wife. All right. Verse 4 it says, And it was told unto Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. All right. So Saul didn't want to keep searching after David once he found that David was amongst the Philistines. All right. That Philistine prince looked out for David. Okay. Verse 5, it says, And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country that I might dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? So David was supplanting Achish. He was like, look, let me get my own plot of land. Let me get my own little territory. I shouldn't be amongst thee because I'm a servant and you're royalty, right? Really, David just wanted to start building his own and take over certain little territories. But within that, he was getting him and his men stronger through battle, through war, okay? Verse 6, it says, Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And that's one of the things that we got to learn and that I like to stress. You know, when you come in this truth as a young brother, you just want to, be mad at all the heathens and curse them out. But at the end of the day, you got to live around them. And the scriptures say, if it be at all possible, live peaceably with all men, because it's to your betterment. All right, you can be blessed by the Most High through heathens. Okay, don't get it. Don't make your captivity worse than it has to be. All right, we can learn a lot from our patriarchs and our forefathers of how they dealt with heathens. They were able to humble themselves and supplant the heathens by just dealing with them peaceably. Right. So David gets this land Ziklag from the prince of Gath. Verse 7. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Gershurites and the Geshurites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of the old inhabitants of the land. And thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. All right. So David, he was tearing shit up. All right. He was warring, getting better at war, getting better at battle with his men, sharpening their skills. All right. Sharpening their wisdom and conquering little lands, man. Verse 10. And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. So David lied to Achish and said, No, I went to go war against some of my people. Basically, he didn't tell him that, I was putting your people to death. So David was able to supplant himself to live amongst Hamitic nations while also taking down Hamitic nations. All right. Verse 11. And David said, Neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. So David tricked Achish into thinking that he actually fought his own people. And Achish was like, oh, David's people are going to hate him forever, so he can be my servant forever. But really, David was just supplanting him. He was like, what's that book, The Spook That Sat by the Door? He was taking out Hamitic nations while seeking refuge amongst the Hamitic nations. That's a high level man of wisdom and skill, man, to be able to pull that off. But this was some of the beginnings of why his hands were too bloody to build the temple, according to the Abba Yahweh, the Most High Yahweh. Right? Let me get another example. Let's go to 2 Samuel, the 8th chapter. And I believe this is going to be a rundown of multiple battles. But it's the 2 Samuel, the 8th chapter, verse 1, and it says, And after this it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them, and David took Medegama out of the hand of the Philistines, and he smote Moab. So, David wasn't no weak man. He didn't say, oh, the Philistines gave me refuge when I was fleeing from Saul. No, when he was on the throne, He knew that at the end of the day, the chosen people were the Hebrew Israelites. All right, and he was king over the Hebrew Israelites. So at the end of the day, every nation was to be was were to be put under the foot and reign of the nation of Israel. All right, David understood that, and he did what needed to be done for a kingdom to be built. That's why Solomon was able to enter into that 40 years of peace. Okay, but verse 2 it says, and he smote Moab and measured them with a line, casting them down to the ground. Even with 2 lines measured he to put to death, and with 1 full line to keep alive. And so the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts. All right. He subdued the Moabites through war. Verse 3, David smote also Hadadezer, the son of Rahab, king of Zobah, and he went to recover his border at the river Euphrates. And David took from him 1,000 chariots and 700 horsemen and 20,000 footmen. And David hewed all the chariot horses, but reserved of them for 100 chariots. So he did what he wanted with the chariots and the horsemen that he got from taking down the kings, the son of the king of Zobah, this prince. All right. Verse 5. And when the Syrians of Damascus came to secure Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David slew of the Syrians 22,000 men, 22,000 men. So the Syrians came to, help out Hadadezer, all right, or come to the aid after they found out, what had happened. Because David put that guy to death, but the Syrians came to, as backup. But hey, David put their ass to death too. Verse 6. Then David put garrisons in Syria of Damascus, and the Syrians became servants to David and brought gifts. And the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. And this is a key point. It says the Most High Yahweh preserved David. So obviously what David was doing in the sight of the Lord wasn't bad. It just wasn't, he just wasn't allowed to build the holy temple. But the Most High was with him, putting these nations to death and putting them in slavery. But you ain't gonna hear this in the Christian churches though, because, to them, God is only one emotion, all love. But yeah, it said the Lord preserved David, He was with David taking down these nations. That's part of the prophecy. Verse 7. And David took the shields of gold that were on the service of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. And from Betah and from Barathai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took exceeding much brass. When Toi, king of Hamath, heard that David had smitten all the hosts of Hadadezer, then Toi sent Joram his son unto King David to salute him and to bless him, because he had fought against Hadadezer and smitten him. For Hadadezer had wars with Toi and Joram. And Joram brought with him vessels of silver and vessels of gold and vessels of brass, which also King David did dedicate unto Yahweh, with the silver and gold that he had dedicated of all nations which he subdued. So all the riches that he got, he dedicated it to the Most High Yahweh. Verse 12. Of Syria and of Moab and of the children of Ammon. Now we know that, David had his faults, and they primarily came through women. Women is the fall of many men, many great men. But at the end of the day, David understood that the only reason he was able to take down these nations and be a great man of war is because it was the Lord that was fighting for him. We just read that up in the upper verse that the Most High Yahweh preserved David. Okay, and David understood that. He knew it wasn't through his own strength. The moment David would have got prideful and started working through his own strength, the Lord would bring him down, just like he brought down King Saul. Verse 12. Of Syria and of Moab and of the children of Ammon and of the Philistines and of Amalek and of the spoil of Hadadezer, son of Roab, king of Zobah. So these are all the, he was tearing up you Gooks, you Hamites, some of you Edomites. And, this is the mindset we need to have, when we conquer things or when we overcome certain situations, know that it's through our horn, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua. It's not through our own strength. We give the glory to Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua. The Most High Yahweh is a jealous power. So is Yahweh Shai. He's likened unto his father. So you don't steal their glory. Give them their glory. Give them their just due glory for them preserving you. All right. Verse 13. And David got him a name when he returned from smiting of the Syrians in the valley of Salt, being 18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom put he garrisons, and all they of Edom became David's servants. And the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. So the Lord kept preserving David. All right. The Lord was with David. And David had all the Edomites as servants. All right. Verse 15. And David reigned over all Israel, and David executed judgment and justice unto all his people. So, this goes into a lot of the battles that David had. He's slaying 22,000 men over there, 18,000 men over there. That's a lot of death. So we understand why the Most High didn't want him to be the first builder of the temple, and he gave it to Solomon, because he knew Solomon would have the foreshadowing of the kingdom of heaven, representing peace, a time of peace, which Solomon, if you can receive it, is Yahweh Shai HaMashiach anyways. So just like Solomon built the first temple, Solomon's going to build the everlasting temple, all right? And you're seeing it already be built with the hopeful elect, all right, the prophets out on the highways and byways, these lively stones, being built a spiritual temple unto our power to give up spiritual sacrifices, all right? Our bodies are temples, all right? And as long as the spirit of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai abides within you, you're one of those lively stones that's being used to build the spiritual temple. But I'm gonna read this here in 1 Chronicles, the 20th chapter. It says, verse 1, and it came to pass that after the year was expired, at the time that kings go out to battle, Joab led forth the power of the army. Joab was David's, second in command, I believe. Joab led forth the power of the army and wasted the country of the children of Ammon, and came out and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried at Jerusalem, and Joab smote Rabbah and destroyed it. And David took the crown of their king from off his head, and found it to weigh a talent of gold, and there were precious stones in it. And it was set upon David's head, and he brought also exceeding much spoil out of the city. All right, so they were warring and taking spoils, and putting other kings' crowns on the King David's heads, because that's what happened. That was an ancient way of a king showing you that he defeated the other kings by taking their crown and putting it on their head. Even when Yahweh Shai comes back, it says that he should take the crowns of all the kings of this earth, whether it be Kim Jong-un, Putin, President of America, European prime ministers, whatever. He's going to take the crowns off of all y'all heads, and he's going to consume them all. All right, spiritually meaning he's going to be the King of Kings, Lord of Lords over everybody, which he already is, but it's going to manifest in the physical. Verse 3. And he brought out the people that were in it, and cut them with saws, and with harrows of iron, and with axes. Even so dealt David with all the cities of the children of Ammon. And David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. So he was cutting them with saws, man. David wasn't playing with people. So really, we're going through our punishment of these nations, and we see what they do to us. But hey, it's their time. When we have our time, we gonna do our just due. But as you can see, when our forefathers and patriarchs, they were getting busy too. So you can't look at the other nations and be like, oh, now that they got us subdued, that they can't do no harm unto us. They're going to do harm unto us, just like we did harm unto them. Verse 4, it says, and it came to pass after this that there arose war at Gezer with the Philistines, at which the Sibbecai, the Hushathite, slew Sappai, that was of the children of the giant, and they were subdued. And there was war again with the Philistines, and Halanan, the son of Jair, slew Lami, the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, whose spear staff was like a weaver's beam. And yet again there was war at Gath Where was a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 4 and 20, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot, and he also was the son of the giant. But when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shemiah, David's brother, slew him. These were born unto the giant in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. So there was, those were some big men, some big Hamites, six toes on each foot, right? 6 fingers on each hand. But they was put to death by David and his men. They couldn't stand. Who can stand against the power of the Lord? Nobody. If the Lord be with you, who can be against you? All right. So yeah, I just wanted to go into why David's hands were considered bloody, man, because he was warring. That's what it means when he says he was a man of war. All right. Putting these nations to death and subduing them and giving the glory to his power. All right.